Putting together a list of the best motherboards for Intel's i7-10700K is more complicated than most people might think. First off, we only have to concern ourselves with the Z490 or Z590 chipsets and motherboards. This is because we're dealing with an unlocked processor, meaning it can be overclocked with ease. So while B460 or B560 boards would work, they don't make much sense if we're going to overclock. If you're not overclocking, then there's no real reason to buy the 10700K either way. It's better to go with the 10700F in that regard. So once we narrowed it down to Z490 and Z590, things do not end there. Z590 boards support PCIe 4, while only a few Z490 boards do the same. This is because Intel's Comet Lake processors lack any support for PCIe 4 in place. The reason then for including Z590 boards in this roundup comes down to pricing and future-proofing if you upgrade to an 11th gen processor. Last but not least, we concern ourselves with four main parameters: VRMs, aesthetics, overall value, and connectivity. We study the board based on these parameters and give them an overall rating. Finally, the boards are ranked relative to their rating. So without any further discussion, let's get down to it. Here are our picks for the best motherboards for i7-10700K. Price information on all motherboards mentioned in the video are available in the description. Number 5. Asus ROG Strix Z590i Gaming. The fifth spot on our list goes to an ITX motherboard. The Strix Z590i Gaming might be the best ITX motherboard for Intel i7-10700K. First off, the Strix Z590i Gaming flexes its muscles thanks to the iconic design. While this is a compact board, it still sits proudly next to its ROG Strix ATX counterparts. Featuring a large rear panel cover that combines the M2 and chipset heatsink, this thing looks spectacular. It features a ROG I logo over the chipset heatsink, adding to the overall visual flair. In terms of expansion slots, it features a single PCIe x16 and two M2 slots for storage. The dual M2 support is a great addition to this ITX board. As for the memory, you get support for 64 gigs of RAM that can run at 5133 MHz. You also get Wi-Fi 6E, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, and Bluetooth support. Furthermore, you get access to high-quality audio thanks to Supreme FX audio codec. In terms of CPU overclocking, it's quite decent for an ITX choice. This is only because the VRMs perform well, thermally speaking. Overall, this is one of the best ITX choices. While it is expensive, you get access to an ITX motherboard that will outlive most of the components in your small form factor PC. Not a bad trade at all. Number 4, ASRock Z590M Pro 4. Z590 is a high-end chipset, that's for certain. However, that does not mean that all Z590 motherboards need to be expensive. The ASRock Z590M Pro 4 is proof of that. This is one of the cheapest Z590 motherboards out there and might just be one of the best microATX motherboards on the market. For those of you not aware, this motherboard uses a microATX form factor, which is quite different from standard ATX. MicroATX cuts down on some features, and that's why the Z590M Pro 4 is so expensive. With that said, it manages to nail the basics head on. Let's talk about the design first. The PCB is black and white, and this color scheme works wonders with the white aluminum heat sinks on this board. Speaking of which, these heat sinks can be found on one of the M2 slots over the VRMs and of course the chipset. Furthermore, the chipset heatsink also features RGB. In terms of power delivery, we have a 10+2 phase design that works wonders for a processor like the 10700K. While extreme overclocking might be a bit of an issue, no one is going to do that with such a cheap board. The fact that it can handle light to medium overclocking is a plus point alone. Apart from all that, the Pro 4 is an excellent Z590 option. It features a couple of USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, decent overclocking on the memory, and a lot of storage ports. While it does lack in the Wi-Fi department, we can let that slide because of the price and abundance of features available here. To wrap it up, this motherboard is not quite for enthusiasts or overclock extremists. For someone who just wants a decent and cheap microATX board for the i7-10700K, hop in the CPU and get to gaming, this is a great option. It manages to punch above its weight for the price. Not bad at all. Number 3, Asus TUF Gaming Z590 Plus. When it comes to Z590 motherboards, finding a decent one on a budget is difficult. Finding a good one that doesn't skimp on features is even more so. While the TUF Gaming Z590 Plus is not the cheapest out there, it's the best value for the i7-10700K, thanks to its excellent feature set and competitive price. Let's take a quick look as to why that is. As usual, we'll start with the design. Asus has changed some things around for the design. It still features the black PCB along with the black heatsinks. However, those heatsinks look similar to those on high-end models. They're bigger than the previous generation, which allows for great thermal efficiency. It features a fanless heatsink and an RGB zone near the top right edge. This zone is controlled via AuraSync. The motherboard has two full-length PCIe x16 slots and 2x1 slots. The top slot runs at PCIe 4 speeds, while the bottom one is limited to PCIe 3. We also get 3 M2 slots for storage. One of these is PCIe Gen 4, while the others use PCIe Gen 3. You also get support for Asus Armory Crate, an excellent software to tune your motherboard and control the RGB of every component in your PC. It goes a step further and allows you to sync everything perfectly. Apart from that, you get a robust 14 plus 2-phase power delivery system. The VRMs here are immaculate, something you only see on higher-end motherboards. It should pair nicely with the Intel Core i7-10700K. Overclocking should not be much of a major issue either. All in all, this is an excellent budget motherboard. The only thing lacking here is Wi-Fi support, which is a bit of a letdown. Apart from that, it offers everything the average gamer might need. While it's not for enthusiasts, it offers a value proposition too hard to ignore. Number 2, Gigabyte Aorus Z590 Tachyon. The next motherboard in our list caters to fans of premium motherboards. We're talking about hardware enthusiasts and people who like to tinker with their components for higher performance. If that fits your bill, then the Aorus Z590 Tachyon is hands down the best motherboard for you. Let's talk about the design first, which is already quite unconventional on its own. This beast features 4 PCIe full-length slots, 4 M2 slots, excellent heat sinks, and a subtle design. Some might say the design is a bit simple, but that is so that you can use it on a test bench as well. For example, this motherboard comes with a separate I/O shield instead of a rear panel cover. As such, the VRM heatsink is a bit smaller here. The ATX power port is also near the bottom for easier access in workstation test bench builds. Another unique design quirk is that it uses 2 DIMM slots instead of the usual 4. We don't count this as a con because this is since there is less interference when you have only 2 sticks installed. It allows you to overclock better than you could with 4 RAM sticks. A unique choice, and this shows that it is built for hardware enthusiasts, not your average gamer. Furthermore, it features power and reset buttons on the switch itself. You also get programmable buttons that can be used to save OC profiles or tweak the voltage. On top of that, you get a 12 plus 1 phase VRM design with each power stage having access to 100 amps of power. This means the board can output 1300 amps of power in total. Quite impressive. It has tons of fan headers and great connectivity options. So the Tachyon is not for the average gamer. It has high-end features and comes at a high-end price. While it's not practical for everyone, it is by far the best overclocking motherboard for the i7-10700K. It is one of the best premium choices. Number 1, Asus ROG Strix Z590E Gaming. Z590 motherboards tend to get quite out of hand very quickly. Some choices are ridiculously expensive, as we've seen. Considering this is our top pick, it had to be something that combines a premium design, relatively decent pricing, and great overclocking support for the i7-10700K. The ROG Strix Z590E is just that, and plenty more. Design-wise, the Strix Z590E looks and feels similar to previous Strix motherboards. This is a great thing, in fact, because these motherboards always have a premium design. We have the familiar all-black PCB, paired with giant heat sinks on both the VRMs and chipset. The heat sinks are designed cleverly to allow better heat dissipation. Of course, they're black as well. Both the chipset heatsink feature the holographic ROG logos. It features 3 M2 slots, 2 of which are PCIe Gen 4, and the other 2 are PCIe Gen 3. All of these slots have heat sinks, which add to the overall look of the board. We also get support for higher frequency memory here at 5133 MHz, and you can add up to 128 gigs of RAM here. You even get a 2-digit LED debugger on the top right corner, a feature loved by enthusiasts. This board also features 14 plus 2 phase VRM design. It's perfect for the i7-10700K as you could overclock it to your heart's content. You also get a USB 3.2 G2X2 Type-C port and 1 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C port, and 2 more in a Type-A configuration. Add 4 more 3.2 Gen 1 ports and an additional 2 USB 2.0 ports. You even get Wi-Fi 6E and dual Ethernet outputs. Furthermore, you get a clear CMOS switch, a BIOS flashback button, and great sound powered by ROG Supreme Effects. All in all, this is a perfect motherboard for the i7-10700K and easily earns the Editor's Choice Award. Do you think another motherboard's better for the 10700K? Tell us your opinion, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Have an awesome day.